Hello everybody, today we are going to talk gardening, so let's get started. For those that don't know me, I'm Becca Laurent, and I'm here to empower you with changes for a detox lifestyle, giving you the tools needed to make life healthier naturally. And today we are going to talk detox with a garden. So I am working on my garden today. I have my pile of compost that we just received, and then I have some barrels and stuff that I wanted to show you some different ways of gardening. This area right here has been my garden for many years, but the last 5 years our property has flooded 4 times. So as you can see that we've had a beating in the garden. Matter of fact, last year I didn't even plant, which was good because we flooded just as soon as plants would have been growing. And the year before I tried to do a garden on the top on my deck up there, but that didn't work out very well. Necessity is the mother of invention. So this year I am doing some container garden since my hydroponics that I was trying in the house is not working out very well either. I've decided to do some container gardening. And being since I've flooded the last several years, I am actually pretty leery on just planting on the ground. My goal this year is to plant about half of our vegetables for the year. So, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. So I've been doing a little researching around, and I have found this container type gardening, which I have actually been doing for many years just in smaller containers. But this year I'm going to do it in 20-gallon totes. This tote I got from Lowe's, and I will leave information in the description section if you want to do exactly what I'm doing. But you know, there are many ways of doing this, and like I said, the only reason I'm doing it in containers is because of the fear of putting all of this work in and then flooding again. So this particular container has going to have a reservoir in the bottom. So down here where my hand is and where my fingers are is going to hold water. But you need some sort of bottom to the soil to keep the soil up out of the water. And that's what these tubes are for. This is just French drain pipe, which you get in, I believe that's a 10-foot section. From Lowe's, and I'm wanting to say the drain pipe, the 10-foot section was about $10. The bucket itself was less than $8, which was the cheapest I could find in a hurried manner for container. So you've got your bottom here, and this is going to hold the soil up off of the bottom there, and then it'll allow water to sit in these reservoirs or these tubes. And then another key to this is this hole right here. Can you see my finger? That is a hole that I drilled with a 3/8 inch drill bit, and that is right at the top of this pipe. So once water goes above this, you know, into the soil, it will drain out. That way it doesn't actually flood your plants. And then I have a, this is, I do believe, a 1-inch PVC pipe that I just had laying around. It's one of our old well pipes that has been replaced, and it was saved in the barn. I just cut it up into 24-inch pieces. Now these pieces, this one is about a foot, and I'm wanting to say these are going to be about 8 inches, but depending on your size tote, is how many that you would be able to fit in the bottom. So that's the basics of this, but then you need some sort of cover to keep the soil and silt from plugging up these little slits that's in your French drain. And that's where some ground cloth comes in. This is a roll that I got. It's 3 foot by 50 foot of basic weed barrier. And this will hold the soil in, but allow, or hold the soil up, but allow the water to go through. So I'm going to go over to another bucket that I have semi set up here to kind of show what is going on here. So I've taken soil and put it over the fabric, and I've pushed where the holes were, you know, or the gaps between the tubes. See, there's a tube right under that. So there's a gap between the tube and the wall of the tub. So I'm pushing some soil in that, and that is for the wicking. And then the next thing I'm going to do is up to about this line right here. I've got some bales of hay that I'm going to break up some hay and put a layer of hay, kind of like a cake layer. So I'll put a layer of hay in, and that will add some more wicking action. It'll add some aeration to the bucket, and then I won't be using all of my compost either. So I'll add that layer of hay. I guess that's about 6 inches, and then I will go up another 6 inches or so with some more soil, and then top it off with some hay as a ground cover type mulch, and add my plant in it. And I will show you the process as I do that. But I also wanted to show this was a blue, I think they're 35-gallon barrels, and we cut them in half. You want to make sure that your barrels are clean and didn't hold anything that is actually going to affect your plants. But these were just some that we had laying around. I'm going to do the same thing with those barrels. And then I will show you some other items that I'm going to do in the garden. This area right here has been my herb bed, so I have cleaned it up, and I don't know if you can see the rocks around it. I'm doing a medicine wheel herb bed, but I will, as I put the plants out and get things growing and everything, I will show you more about it. But that is my medicine wheel right there, my herb bed. And of course, yes, I do know that if we flood again, this bed will be a goner. But I want to be able to grow in places that I've grown before. Here is another container, and this particular container has been made or set up to do just what I have or was talking about with the blue barrels. I lost my water spigot, so I just cut some of the PVC pipe for the spigot, but as you can see, it has a tray that holds the dirt up off the bottom here, and it creates a reservoir for water. And then it also has a hole. I'm holding you upside down there. It has a hole right here. This is an overflow hole. And then I'm going to be doing the same thing with this as the blue buckets. But I have added some cardboard just to kind of keep the soil from the bottom, just because I have cardboard. And then I've added a little layer of hay. And then I'm going to add soil up to, I don't know if you can see those holes, but that's probably where I'll add the soil up to. And that particular container, I do believe you can buy somewhere. These were given to me years ago. I was given probably about 4 or 5 of them, and these are the only 2 that I have left. The others floated away. but anyway, so I'm going to plant in those containers. And then this right here just happens to be some lumber that I was able to repurpose. So I will be making a bed out of that, a raised bed. And I do know that if we flood, this bed will be no good, but I want to be able to grow more plants than my money for the buckets will allow. But that is another way that you can make a garden bed pretty easily. And what I've done is this is just laid on grass, and then I took some cardboard and laid it over the grass, and then I have hay laid up in there, and then I will top it off with soil and either put grass clippings or hay on top as a mulch to keep the soil from drying out. Now let me see if I can get you to see. I don't know if you can see the slope of the land. So where the bales of hay are sitting is one of my walkways from my previous garden. And then this is a garden area, so it's kind of raised. It may be hard to see on the camera. And then this is a garden area too. So if I get to the point that I finish everything else that I'm doing, then this has actually good garden soil underneath the grass. So what I will do, if I get to it, is I will lay down cardboard and put hay down, and then just a little layer of soil, and then some mulch on top of that, and then I will plant on top of that. I know I won't get the production that I would if I had a done bed, but it's better than doing nothing. So that is another option. It would be just like this little bed here. That would be another option for you if you are looking to build something really quickly. And then here is another way of starting a bed. So as I'm cleaning up, back there is my greenhouse, and we've had some lumber that had floated up to the beds of the greenhouse, and I've been working on getting that lumber out of there. And of course, then we have a lot of vegetation debris. Mainly it's ragweed, and then of course the weeds that I pull out of there as I clean it up. And there is no reason why we can't start another bed here, which there is actually a word for it, and I'm wanting to say it starts with an H. I'll put the word at the top of the screen. This is actually a legitimate way of doing gardening, and I do believe it would come from the Germans. But what you're doing is you're taking your branches and your harder debris and you're putting it down, and it creates kind of an aerated layer, but it's all stuff that will decay over time. And then this one will be a last bed that I work on for next year, and it will be a raised bed. It'll be up, these posts are 8 inches, so it'll be at least 8 inches tall. I may even stack it more. This is some of the lumber that floated up to my greenhouse. But anyway, I have some dirt piles that the county gave me when they were cleaning out the ditches. So I will actually pile a layer of that dirt on top of here, and then if I decide that this is a bed that needs to be used right now, then I could put a small layer of mulch or compost or something on top, and actually start growing on top of this. But at this point, this is just prep for next year. But this is another way to start your raised beds with using very little money or resources that you actually have here on hand. So there we go. That's the start of another raised bed. Now I'm going to go to my other raised bed that I have here. This particular one is some leftover lumber when we were building our house, and as you can see, it's looking a little on the ratty side because this was some more lumber that was sitting out here and has started to rot. But it is actually good enough lumber that I think I can get a year, maybe two, out of this particular raised bed before it rots to the point where I won't be able to use it. But this is raised up from the ground to the top of the bed is I do believe 3.5 feet, and it's 3 foot wide, and it is 16 foot long, just because that's what we had. So the only thing that I have spent money on this particular bed is the plastic to hold the soil in, which I will be cutting holes in the bottom. Let's look down at the bottom so I can show you what I've done. It's kind of a hodgepodge of things, but I've used chicken wire, and it was sagging a little too much for my liking, so we put another 16-foot board underneath. This is actually probably close to 15 foot. It didn't quite fit to the end, but I have boards across in different sections to hold everything from bowing side to side. So I have some 2x periodically going side to side to keep everything from bowing. And then I have it screwed to my post for my upstairs, or for my porch upstairs. So that takes care of the back legs. And then I just had some leftover 4x4s and cut those to length and slapped everything together with hope a good enough screws to where everything will be held together. It's nice and stout, and we could actually be flooded about 2.5 feet before this bed gets ruined. So, you know, let's knock on some wood here that that it won't get that high. Though during Harvey, it had gotten up 6.5 foot, which is just to the bottom, or to these steps right here. So that's how high I actually need to protect everything. But I'm going to assume that we won't have another Harvey, that at most we've been flooding about 16 inches. So that's kind of what I've prepared for. 16 inches to 2 foot is what I want to prepare for. But I wanted to show you how I did this bed. You know, like I said, I have chicken wire kind of holding everything up with a little bit more lumber, and it gives a little strength to the plastic, which the plastic keeps the soil and stuff in. And then I did it just like the other beds. I have a good amount of hay under here. And of course now I can't find it. But there we go. We got some hay under here, which when I put the hay in, you know, kind of airing out the hay, I put it up to about halfway up the lumber, which this particular lumber is a 12-inch lumber. So I put in about 6 inches of hay, but with the soil, the compost that I put in, of course it's going to mash down the hay. So I put in a good layer of compost over the hay, and then right here, this is all grass clippings from the lawnmower. I just put the clipping bag on the lawnmower and then dump it out when I need to dump it. That way I can collect the grass, because this makes great mulch, and I've been doing it that way for years. It is a little tiny bit more labor intensive than just going out and buying mulch, but it saves a ton of money. Sometimes you have more time than money, and sometimes you don't, but that's that's what I have done for years, is just put down my grass clippings, and then I'll put another small layer of soil on top of this, and then grass clippings on top of that, and that will be my mulch, and I'll be ready to plant in this. And it should be enough compost and things for the plants for the year. But this particular bed, which I'm still kind of designing out in my head where I'm going to put what. So this back here is the dog pen, and I don't know if you can see, there's a fence that stops right about there. That fence would be great as a starter fence to grow like beans or maybe cucumbers up the side of the house. So I think I'm going to do that, and possibly even put more fencing up along the back there, just so I can allow my cucumbers and or beans to grow up like on a trellis. Yes, I do understand that I will end up having to get a ladder to get some of that stuff, but I am protecting my plants, and this makes me feel better on keeping my plants up out of the water. But to put this in a perspective for yourself, you know, you can actually have this bed on the ground and it would do just fine. You wouldn't even need the chicken wire or plastic if you put this bed on the ground and just layer it with the hay. Well, if you put it on the ground, you would want to put cardboard down, and that keeps your weeds from growing up, you know, like your grass from growing up into your garden, because it will take over your garden if you don't block the weeds. And cardboard is readily available. It's free whenever you get things shipped. So we've just been saving our cardboard the last several weeks to start this project. So if you had this bed on the ground, then you would want to put the cardboard down. You would want to put the hay. You could put hay down, or if you have a lot of leaves, you could use leaves, and that just adds some things to aerate the ground and add fertilizer or compost to your ground to make it better and better. And then that also saves your compost if you choose to buy compost, which I chose to do that instead of carting all of the dirt from the county. All that dirt is sitting out there, and I didn't want to have to work on cleaning that out and then carting it. That we had a little extra funds to where we could buy compost and get a good start on a garden. Now this compost for our area, it was $40 a yard, like a cubic yard, and I got 6 yards, which is a half of a dump truck load. And then the buckets, let's see, the buckets will cost, well, all my buckets together, all these blue buckets that I bought with the corrugated plastic and a roll of the weed block, that all cost me about $90. But I will have an excellent start on a rather large garden. The raised bed, the only thing it cost me was the plastic, which was about $10, and then of course the soil that come out of that dump truck load that I got today. And that is, I'm estimating that takes about 1.5 yards of soil. So that's 3 foot wide and 16 foot long in 1 foot deep, and that should take 1.5 yards, 2 yards of soil when you're adding the hay to it. So as you can see, there are many different ways of gardening. If that is something that you are wanting to do, there are several different representations that I had given you today, that you can start your garden fairly cheap and fairly fast. A garden is a great place to start your detox, or even expand your detox lifestyle, because then you know where your plants are coming from and how they were grown. And this particular setup, in case I didn't say, this particular setup that I am creating is going to be more of a organic garden. I do not use chemicals or pesticides in my garden or on my property. Let's see. So the plants really need to be able to grow on their own without chemicals and pesticides, and that's why I do this organic. And I'm doing companion planting as well. When I get to the planting, I will create another video to kind of show you what companion planting is. But until then, get healthy, be happy, and herbal on. Bye.